Okay, so since you're there, seems that Brian Humphrey says that somebody else is in the room. But I don't see anybody in the room. Maybe I'm on Grant. Oh, there are people in the room. Now I see people in the room. Good to see you. Glad you can make it. I don't know what happened, man, but I didn't see nobody in the room initially. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and get this started. I was just mentioning, y'all might have heard me make this statement. This is actually a paid webinar. You get paid to come to this webinar. So what I'm going to do is walk through these slides, and we're going to touch base on what the expectations are going to be from this training. Session is only going to take about 30 minutes, 30, maybe 45 minutes. So I'm going to ask that you please silence your phones, close your tabs, and because if you close your tabs, you may get an interruption depending upon your bandwidth with your tabs open. So close your tabs, silence your phone. I'll answer questions after we go through the information, and you can feel free to chat among yourselves, but I'm going to just walk through this information to try to maximize the time that we spend in doing this brief training. And I'm going to give you handouts at the end of the session. Plus, if you stay to the end, you will get a special bonus. Yes, a special bonus. Okay, let me see. I'm here. I don't know what that said. Oh, I got his message. Okay, got it. And I will not be messaging throughout this training, but we're going to continue on. So now I found out where the button is to continue. Oh, slide. Next slide. The purpose of this training is to clarify our program objectives, to look at how to produce improvement, because part of our responsibility to the Fort Worth ISD is that we have to improve results in 4 areas. We're going to review some effective styles of engagement, and then we're going to provide some helpful tools and resources. We're also in the process of establishing some more effective channels of communication because, some of the stuff that we've been using in the past have obviously not been working as effectively as it should. If you have any questions hearing me, hit me up in the chat box. Let me know if everything is coming through. Hope everyone is having a blessed day. To Jonathan Morrison, can you hear me before we begin to proceed? Okay, there we go. It's on and popping. Next idea is there are 4 pillars to MBK. The 4 pillars are attendance, academics, behavior, and community involvement. So what we've done is through the first part of the year, from the time that we started to the middle of the year, well, around Christmas break, we were just gathering the data. Now it's time for us to actually demonstrate that we're making some measurable impact on the kids that we're serving through this program. And this is how we're going to do it. I want you to take a look at this timeline. When school began on August the 9th, it took us some time to initially get the kids enrolled in the process because we had to send out the registration forms. And that process we're going to try to modify so that it's not as laborious in the future. But we had at least a week before we can even go into school. So a couple of 3 weeks out, it took us before we get started with the process. So the program launched between September and November. That's when we started developing the relationships, started delivering our content, and ultimately engaged the kids in the process. Well, spring break, really, it takes about 3 weeks, 2 weeks of spring break, 1 week preparing, half a week preparing to go on break and coming back from break. So the reality is that December to January was a spring break time frame. Now we're in this measurement of improvements time frame between February and April. Now this is March 11th. So I venture to say we're already well in the game. And if we don't have our pieces in place and strategy and position for actually making this impact, then we won't finish as strong as we desire to finish. So that's why we're having this webinar. School ends on the 28th of May. Okay, how to review the attendance data. Inside of the Google Drive, there's attendance data as well as behavior data. So every 6 weeks, I believe it is, we get a report from the district. When we get that report from the district, you're supposed to look at that report and identify the kids that are in your sessions that may be having some issues in some various areas. And we'll deal with in a minute, but how you go about having that impact. But for now, I know sometimes people have some challenges actually finding the information. If you have any difficulties after I walk through this instruction, hit me up, let me know, and I'll walk you through hand by hand. But you go to the dashboard. I sent out a newsletter on yesterday, I believe it was. If anybody that's on the team that doesn't have a Fort Worth MBK email address, let me know, because actually I was supposed to meet with the Black Star today. I'll be meeting with them tomorrow. Let me know so we can get you started with that process, because this is how you get into your Google Drive. You should be able to get into your Google Drive, see your shared documents. So normally you go to the website. Once you go to where it says Google Drive, there are shared documents that are shared with you. So when I share a document, it'll be along the left-hand side that says documents shared with you. Or it may be in shared staff documents. I actually shared that document with everybody in the staff, and you may see it pop up in your navigation window if you've already been to that folder. This is the exact file that you're going to go to in order to see attendance. The exact file. When you look at the file, it's going to look something like this. It's going to show you the attendance, and at the bottom, you're going to notice the individual schools. So here you get a chance to see the students that's in your program or in your sessions. You can look at the individual schools and see if anybody's having any difficulty in terms of being consistent with their attendance. Now, our projection is that we really want to create improvement of at least 5% as a result of this program. Needless to say, everybody that's in our sessions does not necessarily need to be improved. But if people are at 100% and we improve some of the others that are not at 100%, we may average out 5% overall. But the objective is to at first pay attention to what the status of the attention is, and then we'll start taking some steps in order to make some improvements. This is where you will access the review of academics and behavior. Now, there may be an easy way to put together this document, and we'll go over that in a minute, but the document is located in the same space. It's on the Google Drive. It's in Documents Shared with Me or Shared Staff Documents folder. This is the exact name of the file. When you go to this file, it should look something like this. There's a list of, and it's not separated by school like the attendance document is separated by school. So you have to ferret down through this, and when you'll notice, you have your academic report, your attendance report, and your disciplinary report. So on this one, you really want to look at these two pieces. One, well, let's just go with the disciplinary report, because you want to know whether or not they have issues. That's going to be one of the biggest things, because that's one of our pillars is behavior. If they have issues, then that takes a preeminence, particularly if it's a standing and urgent issue. So you want to look through that first so that you can begin to address that process. If they have academic issues, you can look at their grade point average and know what is going to be passing or failing for them. Ask them questions about where they are. I recommend that you ask the collective in the class in general and see how many of the students are going to be forthright and just transparent and telling you where they are, what they need help with. A couple of things that we do at some of our sites is, particularly if you have an active liaison, normally that liaison may be able to get them some tutoring, get them some other assistance, or some of the other brothers in MBK may volunteer to assist them as they've done on occasion. And that's really a leadership role. So when they start demonstrating that they're willing to have that kind of leadership and they assist their brothers in improving in these areas, then they following the moral code of what MBK is all about. Next, this is how you produce improvements. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm actually finding this information in various places. You may have a variety of solutions and remedies that you want to recommend, and we'll discuss that. But I just want to deal with what we call best practices. This is a best practice, as has been noted by mentoring.org. Have a conversation with the child on an individual basis. Assess the problem, access the problem. That's supposed to be assessed. Forget the typographical error. We're going to edit that part. Assess the problem and devise a solution. I recommend that you don't devise a solution alone. Really engage the student in the process of devising the solution. Document the plan within the touch points. Now, this is vitally critical. In order for us to demonstrate to the district that we're actually taking steps on these areas that we say we want to impact these young people, Anytime we're having a conversation, a one-on-one, or having an interaction with a student about one of those areas where they may be deficient, you need to document that in your touch points, which is on your website. So again, if you don't have access to the site or you can't get into the dashboard, you need to let us know so we can give you access so that you can document this information. If you are a master facilitator and you're working with a co-facilitator, y'all need to dialogue, because for the most part, the master facilitator is supposed to be delivering the information while the co-facilitator is documenting the progress of the program. Next is follow-up to measure the improvement. What gets measured gets improved. If you put a searchlight on anything, something's going to change on it. So let's walk through this process. How to effectively engage the student. Ask a question. Ask them a question. Don't challenge them or charge them up, as I would be prone to do. So I'm guilty above all. But ask them a question about what's the status of whether it be a behavior issue, whether it's an attendance issue. When you ask them the question, rather than make a recommendation, ask them what you can do to be of assistance. What can you do to help? Listen to the student. I know all of the people that's on this staff are talented. I haven't seen any talented people, untalented people on this staff. I know all of us have the ability to engage in conversation. But the reason why I'm putting this information out here like I'm putting it is because this is a part of staff development. Our objective is not just to know what we're doing, but they actually have a documented process for how we do what we do. So when we bring somebody else to the table that may not have as much of a attuned skill set as you guys and girls may have, I want them to be able to understand the same procedures that we use, and they can follow those procedures as well. Next is agree to a follow-up conversation. So when you engage a student and you ask them a question like, oh, what went wrong? Or what do you think we could do to improve in this area? Whatever the conversation is, agree that you will have a follow-up conversation so that you create a sense of accountability so that they know that, hey, you know what? He's looking at me. You know, already we've discussed this issue. I have opened my mouth and said, I'm going to do this about this situation. So now they're accountable. Next, this is what we call developmental mentoring. Now, when I say this is a best practice, this is in contrast, developmental mentoring in contrast to prescription or prescribing mentoring. This is what is known as a best practice inside of mentoring.org. You listen, ask questions, give the use of voice and a choice. Make the emphasis on it being a fun interaction. Now, sometimes you got to get serious, but the reality is that they're not with us to be their teachers or their parents. They really like MBK because of, one, the discipline, one, the information, but also if you're going to bond with them in a relationship, they got to feel like they can have fun with you and refrain from judging them. This is what a mentor, a developmental mentor is. A mentor is a friend, a coach, a listener, a confidant, a guide, role model, advocate, and connector. What it is not a judge, a surrogate parent, babysitter, professional counselor, social worker, ATM machine, taxi driver, or academic teacher. Now, again, I'll be the first to admit that sometimes I cross over into this dimension of mentoring. But when we're mindful of what we're doing as we interact with these kids, we'll start improving our skills so that we fall more in the category of a mentor so we can build a deeper and longer lasting relationship so that they have a tendency to be more open and trustful with us. And this came from the Institute of Youth Success at Education Northwest. I don't even know what that is, but that's where I got it from. Well, I got it from mentoring.org. So here's the contrast. Developmental versus prescriptive mentoring is on the developmental side. If you engage the youth in that way, where you're asking them questions, letting them make some choices and having a voice, you'll have a tendency to continue to meet up and develop a greater relationship. Less problems will be reported. Prescriptive mentoring is when you come to the child and say, okay, this is the issue. Okay, you're going to have to improve here, or this is not going to happen for you. Or we're going to have to remove you from the program. Or you're not going with us on the field trip. Whatever the situation is, people have different ways to communicate. But it's vitally important that we be mindful. As long as we be mindful, we'll start to see. And as we interact with each other, we can recommend to one another ways and means by which we can have greater impact on these students. Here are some mentoring resources. So I recommend that each one of you bookmark this location because there's some resources here that you can use in different aspects of what you're doing as you're doing your your classes, your sessions. And this is for My Brother's Keeper. This is the My Brother's Keeper Success Mentor Initiative, and it's located at mentoring.org, I believe it is. Mentoring.org. Mentor.org. I'll let you know in a second. Yeah, it's mentoring.org. So because they have so much information on this site, when you go to the site, navigate to program resources. When you go to program resources, you're going to get this drop down. When you go navigate down that drop down, go to mentor resources and publications. When you go to the mentor resources and publications, you will see along here at the bottom is My Brother's Keeper Success Initiative. On that page, it's a lot of resources and strategies, information you can use. Some of this stuff I pulled from that resource. So I'm saying that to you because a lot of stuff we don't have ready access to. We create stuff as we go along. But rather than reinventing the wheel on a lot of this stuff, man, access to resources that are out here. And if you know of a resource that could be beneficial to the team, share that information so that other people can be aware of what's available for us to have the kind of impact that we want to have. Now, communications channel. Christian is going to be involved in us developing a YouTube channel. I've actually started that process. We got a YouTube channel as well as an MBK swag store that's going to be coming up, and you'll find more about that later. I released the newsletter yesterday. I really didn't release the newsletter. That was just a sample of tests, but I'm going to be doing a newsletter, and I really want to get some input from the people on the staff to let us know about some of the events that you may have, to let us know about some of the things that you think we need to cover in this newsletter. Now, ultimately, this newsletter is not just going to be a communication for our team. This is something that we're going to be expanding to reach out to MBK National, because ultimately, once we do what we're doing, because we have a very unique model, there's going to be some other people that want to understand how we create the results we create, which is going to open up a plethora of opportunity, particularly for those of you that want to go out and speak, that have products or services that you want to render to that market. So I want you to keep that in mind to contribute to the development of these tools, because these are tools that you're going to be able to use to do what you want to accomplish. Next is the micro and macro network connections. Let me explain what that means. So each one of us, if we're doing a class, we got at least 12 kids in the class. It's supposed to be at least 12 to make up a chapter. If we got a class of 12 kids, then we may have a communication going on with those kids that's in our sessions. Some of us may have a couple of schools or several schools. So we got a communication going on with the kids that are in those other schools. Sometimes the communication on the micro level may just be for that particular pocket of students. But sometimes there are things that need to be communicated, which needs to be on a macro level. So it might need to be for your collective audience that you're serving, or it may be something that needs to go out to the entire MBK organization citywide. So we need to begin to communicate about what pieces of information do we think everybody need to know, particularly if you're conducting an event and you want to get engagement, you want everybody to have participation. So I put on the table more than once. Anybody have any suggestions about how we can more effectively create communication channels so that we can all be on the same page? I am open to them. But in the meantime, as I have gotten some input, like from John and several other people that said, we need to have a newsletter. So we're taking the steps to start putting these tools in position. And we really want you to be engaged in the process of giving us some feedback so we can craft these instruments in a way that's going to maximize not just the impact of the program, but the exposure, because a lot of you guys, talented guys and girls, got a lot of other opportunities that you can take advantage of if people knew about who you are, where you are, what you're doing, and have associated connection to your cause. Next was community activity and announcement. I strongly believe that we need to make a regular effort to at least month by month have not just the classes that we have scheduled on our calendar, but some of the community activity, because one of the pillars is community engagement. So we got things we're looking at doing, like going to the senior citizens home, providing food to the homeless. And there are people who will give us the resources so that we can take, all we need is the legs of certain young people to get engaged in that process. Jonathan and I have been talking about doing a what we call flash mob. So it's stuff like that that we want to do, but we want to keep communication about it month to month so we know what's going on. Now, With that said, let me see. I'm gonna clear the screen off. So these are the review. Oh, I think we're making good time. Clarify your program objectives. How to produce the improvements. These are the things that we just covered. Review effective styles of engagement, provide helpful tools and resources, establish challenge for communication, and address these questions. Let me go to this chat. I think I'm gonna unmute something here. Chat. Do we have questions? What are the questions? Are there any questions? If there are any questions, type them up in the chat. It's a tab that says questions. Oh, here it is. This is Jerry. Would be cool to have each MBK chapter to take turns adding to the news. I agree. That's a great idea. I really want each MBK chapter to add to the newsletter. And I want to touch on something that I saw John implement in our last conversation when we had a video conference. And he talked about how he gave thank you letters to the people who were in the admin office. And I think that's something that we need to implement, MBK wide. So we will be meeting regarding that. But any kind of suggestions like that you have that's going to enhance our impact, dude, bring that stuff to the table, because we want to put that out there and begin to execute things that are working effectively. I'm getting ready to do something that's going to focus on best practices, not just our best practices, but it's going to be best practices of some other MBK chapters as well, because we're getting ready to engage these other chapters. For when we roll out this MBK swag, we're going to be the one-stop shop for them to go and get their gear. Brian Humphrey, babysitter, LOO. IDR, identify document refer. Oh, Jonathan Morrison. I can hear you. It's 18 minutes ago. Geraldo, facts. I think there's any more questions. Can we create a more effective schedule for the next school year and actually do the transitioning of master facilitators and other facilitators who are experts or very knowledgeable? Good question. In fact, I had a conversation with Isaac, who is not on the conference at this time. And one of the things that he suggested, yes, to answer your question, that's what we have to do, because every school is not getting all the information. And we're not really being effective and efficient in actually monitoring and circulating our people. But what Isaac suggested, he said, what if we have a different subject once a week? Like on once a month. So for the course of that month, you may have somebody doing something on college and career readiness on one day of the week. The next day of that next week, it may be on entrepreneurship, or it may be on health and wellness, or it may be on male socialization. That way, you could take one presentation, go on a circuit through several schools for that whole week, doing the same presentation, and then change up and go to a different set of schools with that same presentation. So through the course of a month, you'll be able to cover a lot more ground. That was one of the concepts, but yeah, that's something that we need to do. And somebody also mentioned that we need to have a process for how do we vet these new ideas. So when we come to the table, I'm gonna create a poll. So it's not just gonna be, we're gonna come up with an idea, we're gonna launch it on you, say, oh, you go, this is what we're doing now. No, I'm gonna create a poll, and I'm gonna send the poll out so you get to say, is this something that we wanna do or something that we think is not a good idea? So that's a great question. With that said, are there any other questions before we close? Our students and liaison need to be more prepared for what to expect. It's our responsibility. I agree. So with that said, as we come about the plan for how we're going to execute, we want somebody to at least articulate that in writing. So that when we sit down with them, not only can we communicate it to them, but we actually have documentation, because everything that we're doing, in order for it to be easily duplicable, we're going to have to begin to document our processes, man. So right now, it's still in a beta stage, because this is the first year that we actually had this ecosystem to work with based on what I understand. I wasn't with MBK last year, so I don't know what the process was. But I do believe that we're making more progress in using these tools we have at our disposal to be, as I have seen from being on the conference call with the leadership nationally, dude, ain't nobody doing it like we doing it. So we head and shoulders above the game, ahead of the game. That said, I want to thank you for attending. Wait a minute. I said I was going to give a special bonus. This is your special bonus for those of you that stayed to the end. Did we go over time? No, I started a little late. I got at least 5 minutes, right? Special bonus. Special bonus this, and I mean this sincerely. How you can package your valuable content for free without needing any technical skills. The fact that you're on this webinar right now is that you're experiencing a process, something that you can deploy and use on your own. But this is not just a good idea. This is something that is going to be essential. One, every facilitator that's doing a class needs to start engaging some visual aids. There needs to either be a PowerPoint, you need to bring a prop, bring a poster. But because we know that our students learn most effectively, our images dictate our realities. So it's going to be necessary for us to more actively engage with using some visual aids. And particularly those of you who I know are adept at presenting, and you have your own curriculum, you have your own message, you have your own audience, it's necessary for you to start developing and packaging your content. So I'm going to tell you how you can do that for free without needing any technical skills. That's your bonus. Oh, you thought it was going to be on your check. I got it. Wait a minute. This will put money in your pocket if you do it right. Okay, here are 3 myths. 3 myths is that you don't need to do it. So you got your message, you know what you got to say, but you don't actually have to develop a package because you can go and deliver. The reality is that the need for what you have to offer and what you have to say is greater than you can actually physically communicate to directly. It's more people that need what you got to offer than you can actually reach physically. So yes, you need to do this, not only because of that, but you also need to do it because you owe it to the next generation. Plus, it helps you develop your expertise and creates value. This is what I mean by that. Anytime you have to walk through mentally, or maybe literally write down and explain what it is, just one point, just one idea, that's actually reinforcing that within your neural pathways so that it helps you in terms of your muscle memory. Your expertise becomes on autopilot. Plus, every time you create a package, that package represents a certain monetary value, and you can use that value in 2 ways. One, you can use that as a lead magnet to give somebody some information that may be interested in what you have to offer as a service or as a subject matter expert, and then engage them in conversations where they might retain your services. Or 2, you can put that package together and put a good label on it or a very attractive offer with it and use that as a commodity and actually sell it. Next, people think it takes a lot of time and money. I just said for free, right? So I mean free. Now this whole webinar thing that we're doing right here, and this is something that we have access to as virtue of us being MBK, being on staff with MBK. But something like this, the entire system is only about $35 a month. And we have not even exhausted all the possibilities of it. But there are resources out there, and I will give them to you, that you can use that cost not a single dime. And it doesn't cost time. I'll tell you how much time it costs. Less than the time that it takes you to have a single conversation, because this is how you do it. You don't get in front of a camera, or you don't create this content and you want to tell your whole story. Don't tell your whole story. Take one single point, one idea, record that one idea, take that message and maybe piece together other pieces to put together a more comprehensive story. But you can do it for free on YouTube. All you have to do is you create a YouTube channel. You say you want to go live, and then you push the button that says event. Now you schedule an event just like this webinar. The next myth is you need to have technical skills. Let me say that again. I have a little technical, but I'm not the most technically competent person in the world. If you can push a button, you can do this. So here is the challenge. The challenge is, dude, I know the people that's in this room. I know the people that's on the table. I know the people that's at the table. I know the skill sets that we have. I made a commitment to say, I'm going to do everything within the scope of my power to bring you access to knowledge, information, and resources that can help you move your needle forward. I'm not relented from that commitment. So these are the steps that I'm taking to put something in your hand and put something on your mind. One of the things I need you to be mindful is this. Everybody that's creating this collateral material or visual aids that you may use in the class, if it's something that we're doing with the students of MBK, that needs to be available cross-company with MBK. So if you're an expert in college and career readiness, and you may not be available to do a session at one point in time. So some of that information, whether it be a PowerPoint or a handout, That stuff needs to be available for the people who are on the team to use if we need it. That's a part of the privilege of being a part of this network. If you want to use it as proprietary material, that's still your right. You have that. You can put it together with whatever you want to put together, put whatever offer of it you want to put on it, and market it and sell it. But the reality is that if we are our brother's keeper, and we know we have specialized skill sets, if we're not really taking full advantage of the skill sets that are at this table, we do it ourselves as well as the folks that we say we serving a disservice. So I'm just putting that out there because that's really how it goes. Next, I just want to thank you for taking this opportunity, spend an hour with your boy having this webinar. Next time, I guess I'll walk through. Oh, and this is recorded, by the way, so it'll be put on replay and maybe made available for some of the other people that come to the table. So since we've covered all the questions, I believe, and I think there's still people in the room. People are still in the room. Man, it's good to see y'all, man. Oh, approve. I'm trying to approve something, but wait a minute. I can't seem to push that button now. Maybe he left. I approve a request. I didn't see that 12 minutes ago, John. Jonathan wanted to speak. I was looking at the screen. I'm new with this. But since we finished, you can speak if you want. If you don't, it's up to you. You see if there's any other questions in the chat. This was great. Yes, we are here. Unread messages. Oh, yeah. There's some good stuff for sure. All right. With that said, I guess I'm going to sign off. I don't want to take up all your spring break, but I appreciate y'all coming out. And you will be paid for the session. You can feel free to hit me up if you need me. Peace.